But first, Australia's being held back, and it's not just by identity politics, but all kinds of ideological craziness. And it's a sort of craziness that's seeped right into the bloated bureaucracies we've now got around the country, and it's helped to gum up the works. You try to get anything done, development just being choked. Now, this is something we really can't afford with an economy now struggling after all these lockdowns. And I want to draw for you an amazing contrast. I used to live in Hong Kong. I was there when they were building a brand new airport out on an island. Not just an airport, by the way, they were building a new bridge, a new underground rail line, the works. Anyway, they took this island, flattened it out like a pancake, and in just 6 years built that new airport on Check That Cock. You can see it when you fly in now to Hong Kong. Just 6 years it took before planes were landing there. And then they built some other stuff around and on and whatever. And now the contrast. Back to Victoria, a project there. Not of anything as complicated as an airport. Certainly not flattening an island. Simply building 100 kilometres of bike tracks in the Yarra Ranges in forests near Warburton Mountain. Just a bike track. And let's not go back 6 years, but 8 years. 8 years ago, a feasibility study was done for this network of paths. Really 8 years ago, okay? And then the Yarra Ranges Council and the Victorian government's bureaucracy got to work. And I say work in, scare marks, these quote marks. I say that because there's still not 1 metre of bike track yet built after 8 years. And when you read the Yarra Ranges Council reports, you'll soon work out why. It says, for instance, the Warburton Mountain Bike Destination teams pushing this thing had to work hard for more than 12 months of detailed technical studies for an environmental effects statement. And detailed is right. This environmental effects statement runs to 3,500 pages. And it's still not enough. The council says it meanwhile had what it calls continued engagement with the Wurundjeri elders, discussing intangible Aboriginal cultural heritage and intrinsic intangible values still felt by the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people. Believe me, when you're down to discussing intangible and even intrinsic intangibles, believe me, that's a conversation that's going to last years. And even that's still not all. Because enter Victoria's Gender Equity Commission. Yes, it really does have a bureaucracy with that title. Gender Equity Commission. Now, there is a rule that every bureaucracy you create is one more level of people whose power depends on saying no. I mean, if they always said yes, what's the point of them? And Victoria's Gender Equity Commission is now undertaking, has been for a while, a gender impact assessment of this bike path. A gender impact study of a bike path, just like the study it already did for a bike track in Geelong, which it said produced this most significant learning that it had to do even more to collect and store gender disaggregated user data across services and facilities. I mean, this is just insane. Let me translate. The most important finding of a gender study of a bike track was that bureaucrats had to do even more useless gender studies into things like bike tracks because who knows? But that's how bureaucracies multiply. They metastasize, right? They're always looking to expand. But how is anyone better off with all these gender studies into bike tracks? And swimming pools have done one into that too. Whatever. The cyclists sure aren't. There's still no Warburton mountain bike tracks after more than 8 years. Apparently it doesn't matter. It's the process that's all the fun. Remember, 8 years, no bike track, Hong Kong, operating airport, 6 years. But this is just a small example. You have to multiply it. You have to extend it to projects all across the country that we need for jobs and for money. You take the Adani coal mine in Queensland. They needed nearly a decade just to get all the permits, go through all the court challenges, go through all the stonewalling by the Queensland Labor government. Or take Gina Reinhardt's Roy Hill iron ore mine in Western Australia. That needed more than 4,000 government approvals, permits and licenses before it could even start to be built. I'll finish with another contrast. At the start of this pandemic, China managed to build a dedicated virus hospital in Wuhan in just 7 days. They built a second one in 10 days. But here, back in Australia and again in Victoria, the new dedicated quarantine centre there is still just a scrape on the ground more than 18 months after the pandemic started. And I warn you, when this country is so slow to move, watch out, we will be run over.